Okay, hello and welcome to the Ferguson Library Presents Intermediate Microsoft Excel. So this is the second class in our Microsoft Excel sequence. This is the only one that we're doing, or I did Basic Excel last week, Intermediate Excel. Unfortunately, we're currently not doing the Advanced Excel, so we'll be moving on to PowerPoint next week. But thank you all for joining us. I'd first like to just kind of start off with just kind of a quick tutorial on how this is going to work here on YouTube if you're following along. So the first thing that you'll want to do actually is you'll want to go to this address that's right here above my head, fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. And when you do that, that's going to take you to this page here. So this is the page that I have built that contains all of our online technology class resources here. Right up here at the top, there's the upcoming schedule and links to be able to kind of jump easily to the videos. I will be adding in the next couple of days the links for basic PowerPoint and intermediate PowerPoint, which are going to be over the next 2 weeks. Up here is the link to the Ferguson Library YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, we encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the great content that we're going to be doing coming up. Scrolling down, it will then split into two different parts over here under the Online Technology Class Materials and Resources. Over here on the left is a kind of a list of all the different courses that we're offering. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to come down here to Intermediate Microsoft Excel, click on that, and it'll open up the section here. And it'll have a few different things to download. There'll be the exercise handout, which is going to be a PDF file that will have some basic information, the exercises we're working with, and then this handout also has a whole list of different keyboard shortcuts that work in Excel for your own reference. There's the exercise worksheet. So this is going to be the Excel file that we're going to be doing all of our exercises in tonight. And then finally, actually, the survey link actually should work. It should be the right survey link. So you should be able to click the survey link and it will then take you to the survey at the end of the class. And I'll also have that link showing up here on the screen for you to be able to see that. Over here on the right, there is one of the two ways to get in touch with me during the course of this live streamed class. So there is a chat room over here, and so if you have a question or a comment during the course of the class, you can just come in here and you can type in a message, like you can type your question here. And I will see that, and when I think there's a good time to stop and answer the question, I will answer your questions. The other way, if you want to participate and ask questions or have comments for me during the course of the class, is through the YouTube chat, which is either right below or to the right of the video screen, depending on how you have your YouTube screen set up. I will let you know right now that what you're watching is on a slight delay from where I'm at. You see things probably about 5 to 10 seconds after I've done it. Feel free to ask your questions or comments in there and such. I will see them and I will stop and and answer them when I think there's a good time. Also, through the course of this class, one of the things that I find works best is that I will because I am going to be talking through and demonstrating and showing things here on the screen on YouTube, and a lot of you are probably watching the YouTube screen, and then you're going to open up Excel in the background to be able to kind of work on the exercises as I go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through and demonstrate the exercises that we're doing. And then I'll kind of do a brief synopsis again through kind of the different steps that I expect you to do. And then I will give you like 2 to 3 minutes to go and do that in your own Excel. So you can actually then minimize your video screen, go off and do that there. That's a good time to ask questions or have me repeat something for yourself or the other class attendees. So moving on, you want to make sure that you download, and the easiest way to kind of download, you're not seeing it anymore. The easiest way to kind of download these here is if you right click and go to Save Link As, and then you can save it to a place on your computer. So you'll want to save both the handout and the exercise worksheet to a place on your computer. I like to create a folder on my desktop and then save it there, because then it's something that's easy to find while I'm going through the class. And then it's also something I can easily kind of get rid of. I can just throw it in my recycle bin when I'm done, because I have copies of these all over the place, but you can kind of keep it for your own practice as well too. So with that done, let's actually get into what we're going to be doing here for Intermediate Microsoft Excel tonight. So some of the things that you should already know coming into this class is you should know how to create a new Excel file, how to save and open a saved Excel file, how to enter data into an Excel worksheet, selecting and modifying data in an Excel spreadsheet, and how to create formulas in Excel. Those are all kind of the things that we covered in basic Microsoft Excel last week. If you want, you can go back. All those videos are saved. All those classes, previous classes, are saved on the YouTube channel. So if you missed the Microsoft Word classes I did earlier in September, you can go back and watch. We had basic, intermediate, and advanced. So you can go back and watch those and kind of follow along with what I did there. And if you want to catch up on the basic Excel stuff, you can watch that class that I did last week as well too. What I am going to be covering in this class is we're going to look at how to manage data. So once you have data in your Excel worksheet, we're going to look at ways to start managing and working with it. So we're going to look at how to sort and filter the data so that you can actually just be working with the data in the way that you want to be working with it. I'm going to introduce the Hlookup and the Vlookup functions. So the formulas that we spent last week kind of working, we're going to kind of take a look at an advanced version of that there, which is again a way, Hlookup and Vlookup are ways to kind of manipulate and work with the data that you have in your Excel worksheet. We're going to look at keyboard shortcuts, so ways to kind of navigate and modify data in the worksheets using just things on your keyboard instead of always having to click and find things on the ribbon. And we'll kind of go through some of those there. Just make sure I get this here. We're going to look at basic conditional formatting. So one of the great tools in Excel is conditional formatting. I'll explain kind of what that is and kind of the different things that you're able to do with it there. So we'll kind of go through exercises on that. So conditional formatting to highlight specific data and data conditions. And then finally, we're going to look at templates, which is kind of another great tool that Excel has built in where people who are very knowledgeable and experienced in Excel have already built tools that you can then use for your own purposes instead of having to build everything from scratch or do everything from scratch. Plus, we'll also look at briefly like how you can create your own templates. So that if there's something that you do all the time in Excel that you're finding yourself kind of constantly repeating or rebuilding the same thing, you can make a template for that there so that you do all of the work once, and then it's just really easy to go in and fill in what you need on the specific moments. So we'll look at that kind of towards the end of the class. Let me know if there are any questions through the course of this here. Again, either in the chat on the online-tech-classes website at fergusonlibrary.org or through the YouTube chat, and I will see them both. You'll notice throughout the course of the class, you'll see me kind of looking both up to my left and up to my right, and the reason for that there is I actually have informational screens up there while I'm doing this here, so I'm able to see your questions, and I'm able to see how my stream information is looking as well too. So if you're seeing me kind of looking up all the time, I'm just kind of keeping an eye on just how things are going. Instead, right now I'm looking at all of you though. So let's actually get in and let me come back to my demo screen here. And we're going to start by looking at shortcuts. And as I mentioned, one of the files that we downloaded, one of the files that we downloaded, this exercise worksheet over here, I'm going to open it. It's actually NLBB Salaries 2005. So it's the National League Baseball Salaries from 2005. It's just a dummy set of data. So I'm going to double click and open this up in Microsoft Excel. This is also a good time to kind of point out, I'm going to maximize this so you can see all of it and enable editing. So if you do see that enable editing and such, as the only reason you're seeing that is because this file is from the internet and Excel is trying to protect your computer. I assure you the file is safe, so you can enable editing. There's not going to be anything tricky in this file here to open up. My demonstrations that you're going to be seeing here, I am using Microsoft Excel 365 in Office 365. This is pretty much the same version that you see in Office 2016 or Office 2019. So everything you see here should look almost the same as you get in Office 2016 or 2019. If you're using an older version of Excel, Excel 2010, 2013, everything we're doing in this class here will work in those older versions of Excel. Everything actually should look pretty close to that as well. So but through the course of the class, if I'm demonstrating something and you can't seem to find it correctly on your version of Excel, please let me know in the chat, and I will then I'll go back and I'll kind of explain where you should be able to find it. This class was originally developed in Excel 2010, so I know everything that we're doing here, we can work in those older versions there. So it doesn't matter if you're using an older version on your own computer. Everything really should be about the same. And if there is a difference that I remember, I will kind of point it out. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to kind of just zoom in here just so my data looks a little bit larger for you on the screen. So we have our National League Baseball salaries 2005, and one of the things I just want to kind of go over, this is kind of covering a little bit of the stuff that we did in the basic class, is just kind of take a quick look at the table design here, how the data is organized in here. You can see we have a title right up here, National League Baseball salaries here, and then the row 3, we have the header row, which labels what each of the columns is going to have. So we have a team column, we have a name, salary, and position. And then we have all the data kind of going down underneath. And you'll notice that there isn't a space between the header row, so this is my header row up here, and my data down here. And that not having a space there is important when you're building your table, because Excel has gotten smarter over the years. And so one of the things that it's able to do now is it's able to kind of guess when things should be kind of grouped together. And having things grouped together, like the data down here being connected to this header row, makes things like when we do filtering or like the conditional formatting later on, it makes it kind of a little bit easier because it automatically kind of clumps all that stuff together. You don't have to do a lot of selection or choosing information. So one of the things I just want to, because we're going to be doing a lot of selecting and kind of choosing cells through the course of this class, I just want to kind of do a quick primer on the class. And actually, let me just kind of quickly show you the handout that we're kind of working with here. So you should have been able to download this from the Ferguson library page. This is the exercise handout right here. Let me hop back into it. So the first page here has kind of the objectives that we're looking at here in this class. And then we kind of start with the exercises, and the exercises go over a couple of pages, and then after that there's a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts. And so we're going to be looking at some of these shortcuts when we get in. But first, let me just do a quick kind of primer, kind of review over selecting cells and different ways that you can select cells and ranges of cells in Microsoft Excel. So the obvious easy way to kind of select a cell is just by clicking on it. So if I click on this here, I've selected C5 with the 322,500. If I click over here, I'm choosing Tony Clark. I'm choosing B8. So just by clicking on the cell means that I can then interact with that cell. I can change the formatting. I can change what's inside of it by typing over what's in there. If I double click on it, I can go in and change what's entered in it with keeping what's there. So the basic way to kind of select a cell is just clicking on it. You can also select ranges of cells by clicking and dragging. And so what I'm going to do is if I hold down my mouse, but my left mouse button, so I'm clicking on this here and I drag it down, I can select down a column. So I can select multiple cells that I can then do things like formatting or searching or filtering or those kind of different things on there. I can also drag it left or right to select rows. I can also go diagonal and select kind of a two-dimensional array. So I can select both rows and columns. So clicking and dragging is kind of the second most convenient way to select cells to be able to kind of do different things in Microsoft Excel. But sometimes if you need to select like a really large group of cells, I'm just trying to get room on my keyboard here so I can access my keyboard. If you need to choose like a large group of cells, you can see if I go down and scroll down and go down here, it starts jumping and scrolling very quickly down the page. And sometimes it can be really difficult to be precise about where you're actually selecting on there. Like I realize here, okay, now I've gone through and I've selected past, say, the end of the Cincinnati Reds. So now I've selected too many cells. And so it's a little bit difficult using the clicking and drag when you have a lot of data, especially data that runs off the edges of your screen, whether off to the side of the screen or down the bottom. So what you can do actually to select a range of cells is you can use the Shift key. And so this is one of the first keyboard shortcuts that we'll look at. So let me say I want to select all of the Cincinnati Reds information. So I'm going to come up here to the top of the Cincinnati Reds information. I'm going to click on the top one here. So it's selected. So now I've selected A84. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down. I'm not going to click on anything yet. I'm going to scroll down until I find the bottom. The bottom's down here in row 113, and I want to select actually all four of the columns in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the fourth column, And instead of clicking immediately, before I click, I'm going to press down the Shift key on my keyboard. So the Shift is over on the left, or actually it's on the right side of the keyboard. It's usually on the second from the bottom row. If you know how to kind of type comfortably, you should know where the Shift key. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and then I'm going to click. And you'll notice now it's now selected all of the cells. And so what Shift did was it selected all the cells in between my starting point, where I chose right up here at A84, and my end point, which was here at D113. And because I did a diagonal, I did kind of a corner down there and such, it selected all the rows, all the columns going to the right, and then all the rows going down. I can do the same thing if I click, so I'm clicking over here on A98, and I hold down Shift, and I click over here. I can do it just across a row, or I can do it up and down a column. So you can do it kind of, and it doesn't always have to be the top left corner. I could start down here at the bottom right corner, move up to the top left, and click, and select them all up going there. So the Shift allows you to do what they call kind of an inclusive select, which means that you're selecting your start point and your end point and everything in between. Now, alternatively, there's kind of a more selective selection. So if I'm going to say click, okay, we're going to start my A84 like I did before. And instead of holding down the Shift key, I'm going to hold down the Control key. So the Control key is right underneath the Shift key on your keyboard. So I'm going to hold down the Control key. And then what happens is I can actually click around my table of information, and I can actually select very specific cells. So, like for example, if I wanted to select specific salaries here on column C, I can go up here, like say everything that's above $1 million on here. I can click, and if I hold down the Control key, I can then specifically select all the different ones, and it's not selecting the ones in between. So Shift allows you to select a start point and an end point, and it will select everything in between. Control will allow you to select very specific cells. So they're just some of the different ways that you can kind of select cells in Microsoft Excel. You can click, you can click and drag, you can use Shift and Control. Additionally, you can also use the arrow key. So if I select here, like let's actually go back to my A84, and I hold down my Shift key, I can then use my right and left arrow keys and my up and down keys to also choose a selection. And what I'm doing actually is I'm moving where the bottom right corner is, and then it's just kind of selecting everything in between. So holding down the Shift key again allows you to do multiple selections, but instead of using my mouse, I'm actually just using the arrow keys on my keyboard to kind of move around. And sometimes, if you're doing a lot of typing, you just want to kind of move things around. It's sometimes just easier to keep your hands on the keyboard and just kind of do that with the arrow keys. Or the arrow keys can be really precise instead of trying to kind of click specifically on what you need to do. So those are just some of the different ways to kind of select information on the in your Microsoft Excel worksheet. Let me just going to get what do I have here going here. Hold on. Just getting my notes all confused. There we go. Okay. So go over selecting cells and arrangements. Okay, so now let's go take a look at keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to go back to my handout here to show you. And so, starting on page 3 of the handout that you downloaded from online-tech-classes at fergusonlibrary.org, there is just a really long, in fact, it goes through all the way up to page 10. So there's like nearly 7 pages of just a variety of different keyboard shortcuts. And I'm not going to show you all of these here. I don't use all of these keyboard shortcuts, but what I do recommend is as you use Excel more, take a look at this list, take a look at the activities that you do often in Microsoft Excel, and kind of figure out which of the keyboard shortcuts would be most useful to use and start using them. Keyboard shortcuts, one of the advantages of them is you start learning the muscle memory. So you start kind of, your hands kind of becomes automatic to kind of do those kind of things. The advantage of using keyboard shortcuts is mainly the fact that you can keep your hands on the keyboard while you're working with, say, entering data in Microsoft Excel, or even actually keyboard shortcuts in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. You can keep your hands on the keyboard, and you're not also spending time hunting for specific functions up here on the ribbon. So the idea of like the page layout, or actually on home, like being able to make things bold or italic or underline. By having the keyboard shortcut, it allows you to access those functions easier without always having to kind of lift your hands up off your keyboard, move it over to the mouse, and then move it and try to pinpoint a specific button where you might have to do several clicks in order to get something to happen. So one of the first things that we want to do is, as I mentioned, one of the first shortcuts I just want to demonstrate is actually is things you can use for formatting. So you can use the keyboard shortcut to make things bold, italic, or underlined. And so how does that work? So let's go here, and actually in the exercises, I actually do say select all the players on the Cincinnati Reds, so it's just kind of nice that I'm already at this point here. So I'm going to do what I just demonstrated before. I'm going to click at my top left corner of my data, which is here, A84 for the Cincinnati Reds. I'm going to scroll down until I find the last line for the Cincinnati Reds to the bottom right corner of where the data is, so where the position for the last player is. I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my keyboard, and I'm going to click. So now we've selected all of the information for the Cincinnati Reds. And now what I'm going to do is I could come up here and click the B button right up here on the ribbon. So this little section up here, I'm moving my mouse to kind of make sure you can kind of see it. This B button up here, and that'll make everything bold. But what I can also do is I could use the keyboard shortcut for bold, which is holding down. So keyboard shortcuts are usually a combination of keys. There are some times where it's just one key that will allow you to do something, but a lot of times it's a combination of keys, and the reason they do that is to prevent you from accidentally hitting a key and doing something you don't want to do. So it's usually a combination of the control key. So the control key, as we were talking about selecting things, is over in the bottom left of your keyboard usually, CTRL, or it'll say actually control. Keyboard shortcuts are usually Control and another key. Sometimes it's Control Shift, so you hold down both the Control key and the Shift key and hit another key. Sometimes it's the Alt key, so the Alt is usually next to your spacebar on your keyboard. Sometimes it's Control Alt. If you've spent any time in Windows, kind of doing a lot of stuff with Windows over the years, you know there's the keyboard shortcut Control Alt Delete, which allows you to kind of access the task manager, kind of enter some administrative functions for Windows, especially if you're having problems with how Windows is running. And so that's a keyboard shortcut that you're holding down the Control, the Alt keys, and then you're hitting the Delete key or the DEL key. We don't want to do that here. But what we want to do is I do want to make all of the Cincinnati Reds players and all their information, I want to make it bold. So I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to hit B on my keyboard. So the B is where the B is. And doing that there, you can see now you can see my mouse was over here on the right side of the screen. So you can see I'm not actually using my mouse, and I'm actually using my keyboard to make things bold and italic or bold there by holding that Control and hitting B. And it works like a toggle. So if I have text that's bold like I do right now, and I hit Control B again, it will unbold it. It will not make it bold. Hold on. Well, it would if Excel decided to behave for me. There we go. So now it's not bold. Now it's bold. So on. And then I'm going to just kind of demonstrate too another one. So another formatting thing that you can do is italics. I'm going to go down to the New York Mets. Where are you, Mets? Here are the Mets. And I'm going to select again, just like I did before. So start at my top left corner, come down to my bottom right corner, hold down my Shift key, select, and then I'm going to hit Control I for italicize. And you can see when I do that there, it kind of makes the text kind of slanted over, italicized or emphasized on there. So those are two of the common formatting things that you can do with text in Microsoft Excel. You can make things bold, you can make things italicized, and you can do that really easily using the keyboard shortcuts Control B and Control I. So I'm going to actually give you about 2 minutes right now to go into your own Microsoft Excel file. And what you want to do is you want to do the first two exercises here. Let me get back up to the exercises. Or the first like 1A and 1B exercises here on the handout there. So we're going to select all the players on the Cincinnati Reds, and we're going to use Control B to make them bold. And then we're going to select all the players on the New York Mets, and we're going to use Control I to make them italicized. So take about 2 minutes, and if you have any questions, let me know in the chat, and I will be right here if you need it. All right, so I hope you've been successful making using Control B and Control I to make text bold and italicized in Microsoft Excel. The next keyboard shortcut that we're going to look at, and I've decided that I've kind of changed my screen here slightly while we're doing that there, so you can actually see the exercises as we're working with them over here on my right side, and then we can also see the Excel over here. So I think this should work. I might have to shrink down my Excel when I start doing some other things later on, just so I have more space in my Excel document, but then we can kind of see what I'm talking about with the exercise instead of me having to hop between the different screens. This is all still a work in progress. I've been doing this since April, and I am getting kind of new ideas as I keep going through and doing each new class on there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a keyboard shortcut. We're going to look at the find. So a lot of times when you have a lot of data, and you can see this isn't a huge data set. I think it has like 442 rows of information down here. It's still a lot, though. It doesn't all fit on the screen. There's a lot of information. It's hard to kind of specifically pinpoint and find a specific place in the data. And sometimes you can be working with much larger data sets. I mean, I've worked with some worksheets that had 1,000, 1,200 rows on them, and maybe a dozen different columns. So it's a lot of data, and sometimes it can be hard to find a specific thing that you're looking for. So if you hold down the Control key on your keyboard and hit the F key, so F is in Frank here, what it'll do is it will open up the Find and Replace window here. And so Find allows you to search for information in your Microsoft Excel workbook here. So you can see over here on our exercises, I say use Control F to find the player named Josh Fogg. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to type in Josh Fogg, and I'm going to come down and click Find Next. Uh-oh, I didn't find anything. So what happened here? We couldn't find what you're looking for. Click Options for more search. I'm going to hit OK, and I've hit OK. It's going to take me back to Find and Replace. So what did I do wrong on this search? Well, I go over and I take a look at the names that I have on my list here, and I notice that all of the names on here are listed as surname or last name first, comma, first name. So when I did a search for Josh Fogg, I did first name and then last name, is because I'm just searching for a person that I know. I don't know him, but I'm searching for a name that I know. But what happens is that the way that I search, the search that I did here, does not match the formatting for what I have here. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind, that when you are looking for data in Microsoft Excel, you have to kind of be aware of how the data is presented in your workbook, in your worksheet here. And so if you're doing find, or you're doing things like conditional formatting, or that you kind of match the formatting that's there, or when you're developing, you're putting data into Excel, that you choose a specific format to enter in data. So when this spreadsheet was made here, this workbook was made, they made a decision to do the names, last name first and then first name. And they were consistent. They did that for all of the names going down. So there aren't some that are first name or last name. So thinking about the way that you work with the data in Excel, it's good to be aware of how the data is presented, and how you're presenting the data on there. So in order to find Josh Fogg, in this case, I actually then have to do first name or last name first. So Fogg, and then Josh. Find next. And there he is right down there with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's a pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So once I put the name in there the correct way, I was able to jump down to where he's at. Now in the Find and Replace box, you notice I have my search box here, which, I mean, if you're used to using Google or anything, it's a search box. We all know how search boxes work. There's also this options down here. So if I click options, what it does is it kind of opens up some ways that I can actually refine or perfect the way that I do my searching. So you see I did a search for Fogg Josh. If I do a search, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up out of the way, and I am just going to do a search for Fogg. So I'm just searching for the last name. Find next. It still finds it. And so what happens is that when you do a search, is that it starts at the first letter there, and it goes down to the last letter, and then it looks for everything that contains that same number, or those same letters in there. So if it was, say, somebody named Foggy, Fogggy, it would find them as well too, because they have Fogg. There isn't a Foggy in this data set, so I wouldn't be able to find it anyway. But sometimes what happens is that can give you false positives, or can give you false results on your search. So there is a little checkbox over here that says match entire cell contents. So if I click that, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up here to the top. I'm going to click, so Josh Fogg is out of my screen there and such. And I'm going to do find again, and it's not going to be able to find it, because when I checked that match entire cell contents, it meant that the entire, from the beginning, the first letter in the cell, all the way to the last letter, has to match what's in my search string, or what's in my search box here. So if I do Fogg, Josh, where I type in his whole name, because that matches the information here, and find next, it will go down and find it. So there's, again, just things to be aware of. If you're doing a search, you're using the find at Microsoft Excel, and you're not finding what you're looking for, but you know it should be there, make sure that you're matching the formatting, and that you're not getting either false or negative positives on there. Check to make sure whether something like this here is checked. The checkbox above it, the match case, means that it will actually match capitalization. So here I have the correct capitalization. If I go and do a search for lowercase f on Fogg, it will still find it. But if I check this box and search with the lowercase f, it won't find it, because it has to have the capital F. It has to match the case being the capital or lowercase letter, capital or lowercase letters. Make this capital F again, and then I'm able to find it. So some of the other things that you can kind of do here in the find and replace is you can search within, you can tell where to search. So right now, by default, it searches within the sheet. So the worksheet is like the one page where you have all the data. Now, if you remember from our basic Excel class, the terminology in Excel, a worksheet is your one sheet, your one page of information. A workbook can have multiple worksheets. And you can see down here on the tabs, I have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. If I wanted to, I could do a search for the entire workbook. So if I wanted to find something across all of the different worksheets that I have open in that workbook, I can do a search there, or I can search just within the specific sheet that I'm working with. search by rows or by columns just means it just changes the order in which it might find information. If we had multiple like responses, what we're looking for, whether it searches from top to bottom or it goes left to right kind of thing. You can tell it to look, and there's some other kind of searching here. Such I'm not really sure about all the different details for this here, but you can go in, kind of experiment, and kind of see what they are kind of on your own time. You can also search by formatting. So I could search for everything that's bold or italicized. Remember how we did a couple teams bold and italicized? I can look for information that's bold or italicized. Something like this gets useful when we start doing things like conditional formatting. So like if I could do a conditional formatting for something that's like very specific, like, okay, this person made 326,000, I can make a very specific condition for that there, and then I can look for that condition instead of looking for the amount. So I could do things like, okay, give me like some of the conditional formatting. I'll talk about more about this when we do conditional formatting, but I can do a conditional formatting for like, do this formatting for the top 10 items. And then I can actually have this search for that formatting that I did and find those top 10 items on there, which again, on this spreadsheet, it's only 440 cells. I can easily scroll up and down the whole thing and kind of see everything and such. But if it gets much larger, having those kind of tools are really kind of useful. So I'm going to close this, and I just want to also kind of just indicate that the Control F function, just like so the keyboard shortcut, Control B and Control I, this is something that works across Microsoft Office. So the Control B and Control I for bold and italicized will also work in Microsoft Word. They'll work in PowerPoint as well too. Control F, what we just did for find, is also kind of a somewhat universal keyboard shortcut for find. And so if you're in like a web browser like Mozilla Firefox or Chrome or Safari, whatever you use for your browser, and you're on a web page that you're trying to say find something specific on the page, and you're scrolling up and down and you just can't find what you're looking for specifically, you can hit Control F in your browser and do a search for that there, and it will search that page. It won't search the internet, but it will search that page that you're on to find specifically what you're looking for. So Control F is a very useful keyboard shortcut, not just in Excel, but across Windows and in other Microsoft Office programs, because it allows you to easily get to the find function to be able to search what you're looking for, instead of having to rely on trying to find it yourself with your eye. The next keyboard shortcut I want to go over is Control H. So I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to hit the H key. And what this is going to do is this is going to open up actually the same window I just had opened before, the Find and Replace window. And you can see here's Find, but it's in a different tab. It's in the Replace tab. So here's Find. So here's that one that we were just looking at here. I'm going to turn off the options and go over to Replace. And so now we're able to see, and what Replace allows me to do is Replace allows me to find a value. So like in this case, if I'm searching for Josh Fogg, and then I can replace that with another value. So how does that work? So what it does is, so we put what you're looking for, the original value here in the top box. So in the exercise, you can see over in the exercises, we're going to replace all instances of 360,000 with 365,000. I have this little note here about being careful, and I'll show you why that's there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go type in 360, 360,000. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to enter in 365. So basically the managers of the National League here decided that they were going to give everybody who is earning $360,000 a year a $5,000 increase. Wouldn't that be nice? So you can see when I was in the Find over here, I just had Find Next or Find All. I had a couple different buttons over here. In Replace, I actually have a couple extra buttons. I have my Replace buttons, but I also have my Find buttons. And I recommend that unless you're extremely confident in what you're replacing, don't jump right to the Replace here. What I do recommend is using the Find buttons here. And we already saw kind of what the Find Next is. The Find Next jumps to the next value of that amount there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click Find All. And you notice, once again, just like I had the issue when I did a search for Josh Fogg, is that I got an error. It was not able to find what I was looking for. Why not? So I'm going to hit OK, and let's go back and take a look at what I searched for. I searched for 360,000 because that's what I'm seeing over here in my on my spreadsheet. Everything, the comma's there to separate between the thousands and the ones field, or the millions and the thousands. There's the comma there. But let me go, if I click on this value here, and you'll notice right up here on my, in the entry bar up here, you can see it says 750,000, 750,000. There is no comma in there. And the reason for that there is that Excel, when it looks at that value, it does not see the comma. The comma does not exist there for Excel. The comma is only, Excel will show you this comma here because we've told it to put a comma in between the different places. But it does not see it. So the comma is there for you as a human to be able to see and read that number easier. It's easier for us to read this and see 750,000 than to look up here. Here we have to kind of mentally count the zeros to kind of see, okay, is it 7,500? Is it 750,000? Is it 75,000? It can be easy to make a mistake when we don't have that kind of dividing indicator that we do here. But that's important to know that Excel does not see that comma in most cases. I'm saying most cases because we're going to have an example later on this class where we need to use the comma. But right now, don't use the comma because Excel doesn't look at it. So I'm going to come back down here to my 360,000, and I'm just going to get rid of the comma that I have in there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my replacement value. Oops. There we go. And now what I'm going to do again is I'm going to click Find All, and what this should do is this should give me all of the instances that has found 360,000. Now, if you notice, it mostly is correct. 360,000, 360,000, 360,000. But wait a second. We have this one right here at C113, 3.6 million, 3,600,000. That came up. That's remember I was talking about the false positives or the false results that you may find on there and such. Here's an example of that there. And so why did this come up? And the reason why this came up is that I was looking for this value here. I was looking for 36 followed by 4 zeros. Now, if you look at this value, I have 3, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. There just happens to be an extra 0 after that there, but it still found the 3, 6 followed by the 4 zeros. But if I had gone and done replace all, if I had hit replace all, then all my little 360,000s would have become 365,000, but this would have become 3,650,000, which is not what I intended to change. So this is why it was important to do the find all. But then how do I fix my search so I don't get this extra wrong answer in my search? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to open up, extend my options on here. And remember, I was showing with the Josh Fogg the match cell contents. So I'm going to turn this on now, because now what happens is that it means that the entire cell must have 3, 6, and only 4 zeros. If there's an extra 0, it does not match the entire cell contents. So I'm going to do find all, and now you can see I just have my specific responses that I'm looking for. It just has the 3, 6 with the 4 zeros, 360,000. It doesn't have that extra wrong answer. Once I see this and I'm confident that, okay, these are the ones that I want to change, I can come up here and just click replace all, and it will go through and it'll tell me, okay, I've made 5 replacements, and you can see right up here in my data, yes, it did. It went from 360 to 365,000. So Control F gives you find, Control H gives you replace, and the reason why it's not Control R is that Control R has been used for another purpose. I don't know exactly what it is in Excel. We can maybe take a look and see if we can find Control R. Control R uses the fill right command to copy the contents to the leftmost. So Control R already has its own function on there. The reason why find and replace, which are closely linked in Excel, are F and H. Will find, Control F. That's just a standard thing. Control F is find. Control H is pretty close to it on the keyboard. It's just separated by the G on your keyboard. So the Control G might actually be something similar. Control G is the go-to dialog. So you can see you can do find, go to, or find and replace. And so they're kind of all linked together kind of conceptually, where Control F and actually Control G are kind of match what they should be for, and then they just put H kind of close to that. So what I'm going to do is let me give you about 2 minutes. Go into your own Excel, and let me go back up to the exercises here. Do these 2 exercises here with the Control F to find Josh Fogg. Now remember, you have to search Fogg, Josh. And then also do Control H, and we're going to replace all of the instances with 360,000 with 365,000. And you want to make sure that when you do that, you want to open up the options down here and make sure you do match entire cell contents, or else you're going to get that false wrong answer that I got before. So take about 2 minutes, and let me know if you have any questions. All right, so now you've practiced doing find and replace using Control F and Control H. The final set of keyboard shortcuts that I'm going to kind of demonstrate here for this class are ones that we can commonly also use throughout Microsoft Office as well as throughout Windows, because these ones here are standard keyboard shortcuts that are universal to almost everything in Windows. And they are, of course, copy and paste, or copy, cut, and paste. So the keyboard shortcuts for copy, cut, and paste is Control C. So C as in cat. So if you look down your keyboard, you'll see actually there's Control C right above, or the C is right above your space bar. Cut. So the difference between copy and cut is copy will allow you to take data from one place and put it in another place, but leave the original in one place. So you're basically making 2 copies of the information. You can have them sitting next to each other and see them both. Cut takes the original data and moves it to or what it does, it really is it copies it to the new location and then deletes the original. So you can actually kind of move data from one place to another. Cut is Control X, and you can see the X key on your keyboard is right next to the C key. Now the third function that kind of ties them all together is paste. So after you copy or cut something, you have to paste it somewhere. And so paste is Control V as in Victor. And you can see all 3 of them are lined up. Remember I was talking before about how F, G, and H are kind of like conceptually linked, and so they're kind of in the same place on the keyboard? Well, for cut, copy, and paste, they're also in that same place on the keyboard, X, C, and V. Why isn't paste Control P? Well, because Control P also has its own standard, or has its own, it's a shortcut for another thing that's also universal all the way around, which is print. So there's another keyboard shortcut to know, it's Control P for print. And that's something, again, that works in Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, Firefox, almost anywhere that you're on, almost any program that you have that can print in Windows. A Mac, it's Command P. it's a universal keyboard shortcut. But the thing is that paste isn't P as in Peter, simply because they also want to put it into that same place on the keyboard. So how does copy and paste work in Excel? Excel handles copy and paste a little differently than how we're used to in other places. So in the exercise you can see here, we're going to select all of the players on the San Francisco Giants, and we're going to use Control-C to copy them to the clipboard. So the clipboard is this kind of skeuomorphic concept in Windows, where when you copy something, whether it's like text in Microsoft Word or it's something on a website, it stores it in this temporary location in Windows that has been known as the clipboard. So it's like you basically take it and you kind of clip it into another place where it's temporarily lives until you paste it somewhere else. Now, usually when you work in any other sort of program in Windows, whether you're in Microsoft Word or you're in Firefox or Safari or Chrome, whatever you do for your browsing, when you copy something to the clipboard, it stays in that clipboard until you copy something new. Excel works a little bit differently, and this is just one of those quirks that you have to get used to working with Excel. So I'm going to go down to the San Francisco Giants. So here's my San Francisco Giants. I'm going to select using my top left, going down to the bottom right, holding down Shift and selecting everything in between. And so now I'm going to hold down Control-C on my keyboard. So Control-C. And you'll notice now it's put this like kind of moving dotted line around what I've selected there. And what this is doing is this is telling me that this is the text, or this is the information. These are the cells that are copied and on the clipboard for Microsoft Excel. Now the thing is that in almost every other program, if I go off and start typing something else, if I come up here to this E thing and I start typing something else, that information should stay on the clipboard. Except in Excel, you notice that as soon as I started typing over here, that green dotted dotted line box disappeared, which means that it's no longer selected, it's no longer copied. So when you copy something in Excel, you have to go and paste it immediately before you do anything else, or you have to reselect it again. Just something just going to be aware of when you're working in Excel. So I'm going to select my San Francisco Giants again, and I'm going to hit Control-C, and I'm just going to come over here to Sheet 2, and I'm going to hold down Control, I'm going to hit the V as in Victor key on my keyboard. And what that'll do is that will paste all of the information down onto into my new spreadsheet here, my new worksheet. You'll notice that it doesn't really like the widths. It didn't copy over like the widths of the columns. Sometimes copying will You'll have some issues with like formulas. You have to be careful with copying and pasting in Microsoft Excel. I kind of encourage you go in, kind of experiment, kind of play around with copying and pasting. Because it can be a little quirky and a little, it has some like odd things that it will do. Like if you have a formula, sometimes it may not copy and paste as neatly. Or if you have, say, a field, like you have, say, a column that is like the answers, formulas that are answers. Like if you remember last week in Basic Excel, we did like the sum of like of some sales. We use the sum function. If you copy and paste just that sum function over to like a new worksheet, it doesn't take the data with it. It just copies the formula itself, and then it gives you kind of like weird errors or zeros or something because it doesn't have the numbers that it was working with. So you just kind of have to be aware. But in order to do copy and pasting, it's really easy just to do that Control-C, find where you want to go, and then just hit Control-V. So if I wanted to, I can come here and I can hit Control-V again, and it will paste it again because it's still selected. It has that dotted box around it over here until I go and type or do something else somewhere else. Like I change a formatting or something. This will stay selected and I can paste it as many times as I want. So that's Control-C and Control-V to kind of copy and paste the giant. And then there's some fancier paste that you can do. If I come up here and do paste, I can do things like just the values, or I can do widths. There's some like fancy things I can do with the copy and paste. But we're not going to really get to that in the class. I do recommend just going and kind of experimenting with it on your own. You can see other videos here on YouTube that will talk about copying and pasting in Excel too that might get into a little bit more detail. So I'm going to give you, let's take 1 minute. It shouldn't take that long. Go and copy the San Francisco Giants. So start at the top left, go down to the bottom right, holding down Shift to click and select everything. Hit Control C as in cat on your keyboard, and then go over to sheet 2 on your worksheet, and then choose a cell, doesn't matter where you do it, and then hit Control V, V as in Victor, on your keyboard, and you'll paste it there just to kind of see how that keyboard shortcut works. And Control C and Control V are really kind of nice keyboard shortcuts to learn because they can be used anywhere in Windows, and when you tend to copy and paste, it tends to be kind of sometimes a repetitive task. So like if I wanted to paste something multiple times, I could do right-click paste, right-click paste, right-click paste. That can take a little bit of time, but I can also just hold down the Control key and just keep tapping V, and it will paste as many times every time I hit V. So that's why it's just kind of a useful keyboard shortcut. So take a minute and do that, and then we'll move on to get past our first exercise. We have an hour left. We'll kind of start looking at some of the other things that we'll be doing in this class. All right, so now hopefully you've had a little bit of practice using keyboard shortcuts. I do highly recommend kind of taking the handout here and just kind of looking through the different keyboard shortcuts that are here, and find ones that you might get comfortable using, and then just start practicing them. Another good one to remember and start learning is Save, Control S. I come over here, here's Control S, so hold on the Control key and hit S, and it will save the file. So it's easier to do that than to go up to File, Save, or click the Save button up here on the top left. When you're typing and doing things, it's just really easy to get automatically into the habit of quickly holding down the Control key, hitting S, and then continuing what you're doing. You don't have to like stop and go and click something different. So Control S is another really useful keyboard shortcut to learn how to use. So let's go back, and we're going to move on to exercise 2 here. So we're going to start looking at sorting and filtering. So once we have all of our data entered in here into Microsoft Excel, what are different ways that we can start organizing or managing the data that we have? So I'm going to scroll up here to the top. And so the first thing that we can do is we can sort the data. So one of the nice things about Microsoft Excel is that when you're entering information, you don't have to worry about making sure that that information is put into the correct order or whatever order that you want to do it, because you can always change the order. You can sort it later on, and you can sort it as many times as you want in whatever kind of sort order that you want. So looking at the data that we have right now in our kind of exercise worksheet that we have here, I know simply from my experience using this worksheet that the way this data right now is sorted is that it's sorted by team name. So you can see all of the team names. So everybody who's in an Arizona Diamondbacks are all together. So it does a sort by the team name first, and then I look at the names, and you can see the names are all in alphabetical order. So it sorts first by team name. It puts everybody who's in the same team together, who has the same team name in this column, in the same place. And then anybody within this group from here to here, it then sorts them all over here alphabetically. And then it's not sorting by this information here. So how can I change the sorted information? So what we're going to do is, if you notice, I have this exercise here that says, okay, my head's not covering it. Well, my head is almost covering it. Let me see if I can, okay, let me kind of move around. So what we're going to do actually is we're going to sort the list of players alphabetically by salary. So what we're going to do actually is that we're going to sort by salary first. So instead of sorting by team name over here, We're going to sort by salary, and then anybody who has the same salary is going to get sorted alphabetically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click into the middle of the table. It doesn't matter. I could be all the way down here into like row 138. I can be right up here at the top in 4. It doesn't matter, just as long as my cursor, my selected cell here is inside the table of data. I'm going to come up here to the Data tab on my ribbon. And in the Data tab, and I'm going to just briefly make this a little larger so we can kind of see. You can see right here in the middle on our Data tab is the Sort and Filter section. So we're going to look at Sort first, and then we're going to look at Filter. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click Sort. And you can see, remember before when I was talking about how the worksheet, like how the data table over here was arranged so that I have my header row up here, and then there's no space in between, and then everything's kind of lined up and connected underneath. One of the advantages of doing that is that as soon as I did sort, it automatically assumes that the whole table, everything that's here, is part of the same table, and it should be sorted at the same time. Now you notice on the sort box, right up here in the top corner, is a checkbox that says my data has headers. And what that is saying is that this first row, so this first row right up here at the top, my row 3, is a informational row. It doesn't have data in it, but what it does is it provides information about the data. In this case, it provides information about what these different columns are. Now, this is a useful thing, again, when you're designing and when you're planning and putting information into Microsoft Excel. I always encourage you to put a header row up there and label it there, because then, first of all, it allows you to keep in mind what that different column means as you're working with things, especially if you have a lot of information. It also allows anybody that you share that file with to understand what that column is and what that information is supposed to be presenting. You'll notice if I click this off here, actually, since it's still on, you can also see right over here under column, my first sort step over here, it says sort by, and it has those names. There's team, there's name, there's salary, there's position. Team, name, salary, position. Now, if I turn this off, you can see now that this top row is now included in the selection, which means that it's considered part of the entire table, which means that these will now get sorted with everything else underneath. And you can see over here in my first box for sort by over here, it now says column A, column B, column C, column D, which is not useful. That it doesn't help me at all. I don't know what column, I know what column A is, but suppose I don't know. I don't know what column A is, I don't know what column B is. But if I used header rows and I tell it I'm using header rows, then I know, okay, so I'm sorting by team, I'm sorting by name, I'm sorting by salary, and so on. So let me actually just go back to here so I can actually get this next to, there we go. All right, so let's do that again. Sort. Okay, so now I said in my exercises here, we have sort the list alphabetically by salary. So sort by salary and then sort by name. And now one of the things when we look at the sort box is I always kind of recommend is to think of it like a sentence. And it's kind of written. So what happens is you look here at the start and they say sort by. And so then what happens is you choose, how are you going to sort it? What field, what information are we going to sort it by? In this case here, our instructions are to sort by salary. So sort by salary. Sort by salary, cell value. So what value inside the cell? So you can see we can sort by different things. We can sort by color. We can sort by, so the background color of the cell, the font color of the cell, or like a conditional formatting icon. When we do conditional formatting, you can see that we can do icons on there. So we can use that conditional formatting information to affect our sorting, or we can actually just do it based on the value that's inside the cell. For this case, we're just going to do cell values. And then over here on order, we get to choose, okay, so are we going to do smallest to largest or largest to smallest? We have 3 choices in this order box here. Smallest to largest starts with the smallest number and goes up to the largest number. Largest to smallest is vice versa. It makes sense. Now it's giving us smallest to largest and largest to smallest over here because it recognizes that the salary column has a number in it. If I come over here and say choose name, which has text in it, you can see now I get an option for alphabetical or reverse alphabetical order. So Excel's a little bit smart. It's not going to ask me to do largest to smallest or smallest to largest when there's like words, but it'll offer me that when there's numbers. We're going to sort by salary, and let's do largest to smallest. Okay, and then the third option here, custom list. If I click into this here, what this does is this allows you to build a custom ordered list. So for things like numbers, we have an obvious order that things should go. They should either go smallest to largest or largest to smallest. Words, we have that, or letters, we have the same thing too. It's alphabetical. It goes A, B, C, D, or it goes Z, Y, X, W, V. Reverse alphabetical. But there are sometimes situations where we have systems in place of information where if we have them listed out, there isn't a neat way to sort them there. So you have to give specific directions how to sort them. So two examples that you can see right here are things like day of the week or months of the year. So if, like, suppose we had a column that was months of the year, January, February, March, April. If we did a sort by alphabetical, then you would have things, you would have February, January, March. Actually, you'd have like April. I don't even know the full order that the months would go in, but like April would come before March, which would come before February, or which would come after February. December would become before January. It's before February. It's all messed up. But what happens is over here, you can tell Excel, okay, that using this custom list, January comes before February, comes before March, comes before April, etc. The other one is days of the week. Sunday comes before Monday in most calendars, but alphabetically, Monday would come before Sunday. It would be like, actually, what would it be? We'd have Friday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The order would be all out. So you can give it the specific order that it's with. So you can give it a custom list to have the specific order that you want to sort it in. So that may come up with something that you're kind of doing already in Microsoft Excel. In this case, we're keeping things simple. We're looking at numbers, we're looking at names, and we already have fixed systems to keep those in order, whether it be like numerical order or it's alphabetical order. So as I mentioned, I'm going to hit OK on this. So I have my first sort here, sort by salary, the salary cell values, and I want to sort them smallest to largest. And I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see actually now everything's in order. It goes from the smallest sort here all the way up down. If I go all the way down to the bottom, all the way up to the largest there, Barry Bonds earning $22 million. So let me go back up. But you notice now, like if I look like within like these people earning say 316,000, there's a whole bunch of people earning 316,000. I want to order them. Right now we have a B, an L, a B, an M, another B. There's not any sort of other order aside from the salary on here. So what happens is I want to build another layer into my Microsoft Excel sorting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my sort button again, right up here on the top on the ribbon. Click sort. And so here's the sort that I had. I want to go from salary, smallest to largest. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click this add level button. And what this is going to do is it's going to add a second level of sorting to what I already have. So remember before when I said think about it like a sentence. So here I have sort by salary, cell values, smallest to largest. Then, so after you sort by salary, then sort the results by, in this case, we're going to do name, and we're going to do them alphabetical. So cell values A to Z. I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see when we go look at the 316,000, there's Aquila, there's Baker, there's Belial, there's Bedimit, there's Blanco. These are all in alphabetical order. So everybody who's in the same batch of salaries here are all earning the same, or are now ordered alphabetically, just to kind of add a little bit more order to the whole system that we have in place here. So, and you can see, once I go into sort, I can change it. I can go and we can do it, say, largest to smallest. So we're looking at the largest salaries at the top. So there's Barry Bonds instead of being way down at the bottom. And if we go down, so now we have the people earning $9 million here and they're in alphabetical order as well too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. Go into your Microsoft Excel, click into your sort, into your table here. So click anywhere into the table. It doesn't matter where. Go to the Data tab on your ribbon right up here at the top. Right in the middle is going to be a button that says Sort, right in the Sort and Filter section. And then what you want to do is you want to sort by salary, cell values, largest to smallest or smallest, it doesn't matter to me. And then add a level, and then choose Name A to Z. So you want to do those in alphabetical order. Let me know if you have any questions. Take a couple minutes to do that, and then we can go and kind of look at then we'll look at filters and how filtering differs from sorting. All right, so I hope you've had some practice sorting in Microsoft Excel. If you have any questions, again, you can either ask me again in the YouTube chat or on the chat room at fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. And I will see questions in either of those places there. So let's move on, and we're going to look at filtering as well too. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that once you sort the data, there's no way to kind of go back to the original entry data without doing undo. So you can hit Control-Z, another keyboard shortcut, useful to remember. Control-Z will allow you to undo something. So you can undo back that way. But most cases, the fact that you can't really go back to the original sort order doesn't really matter so much, because you can sort your data however you want. And it's usually better to have organized data than unorganized data. At least that's my thinking. So now let's take a look at filters. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to click into my table of information, just like I've done before. And right up here, again, in my Data tab on my ribbon, right next to the sort that we looked at here, there is a filter button. So I'm going to click the filter button, and you can see actually that it turned gray, which means that it turned on. So filtering is like a toggle on there. It's either on or it's off. And as soon as I turned it on, you can see right up here in my header row, again, another advantage of having that header row up there, I have these little downward pointing arrow buttons that showed up on each of my columns. And so these buttons are my filters. So what filters allow you to do is filters allow you to tell Excel to only show the data that you want to see or hide the data that you don't want to see. How does that work? So what we're going to do is we're going to filter the list of players by position. So we're going to look at the position here. And so now everything here is in order from salary, the largest salary down to the smallest, and then by name alphabetically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the position here, and so this is going to open up my filter. So I'm going to click on the little button that's at the right side of the cell now, and it's going to open up this menu here. This is my filter menu. You can see actually right here in the filter menu, there's actually a sort option. So it's a quick way also to access sorting in that column. So if I wanted to sort by position, I can easily do that using this filter menu here. What I'm more interested in is this section down here. So down here towards the bottom of the filter window is a list of every single unique list item in that column of information. So in this case, because baseball only has 9 positions, there's only 9 entries here. It's basically the first time, like say catcher shows up, it adds it to the filter list. The next time catcher shows up, it just ignores it because it's already in the list. But then it sees first baseman and it adds that to the list. Something like if I look at the filter here for name, because everybody has a different name, they're all listed here. Every single name is listed here. So that's why sometimes like a filter on name isn't that important unless you're specifically looking for information on that name there. So for here, what we're going to do is position. And you can see next to each of the position names here is a checkbox, and they're all checked, which means that they're all being shown right now. It's showing anything that has a check mark next to it. The select all up here is checked, which means that everything is selected. If I say uncheck that there, now nothing is selected, and you can see it's actually grayed out. My OK is grayed out now because it means that I'm not showing anything. There's nothing to show. So let's go look at, say, catchers. I'm going to select catchers. I'm just going to put a check mark on catchers, and then I'm going to hit OK. And now what it'll do now is it will only show me the data for anybody who has catcher as their position. It's still sorted by salary and then by name alphabetically. So like here, like our two $750,000 earners, or like our two, they're sorted here alphabetically. Doing the filter here does not get rid of all the other information that we are not seeing. Rather, it hides that information. So now what happens is I can now go through and I can easily compare the salaries of just all of my catchers. Now, you'll notice over here on the right side of the screen where my row columns are, there's a whole bunch, they're all blue now compared to the black that they normally were before. And the reason why they're blue now is that it's telling me that there are hidden rows. So you can see it goes from 7 to 40, and actually goes from 3 to 7. So it's missing 4, 5, 6. And it goes from 7 to 49. So it's missing 8 through 48. They're just not visible. I can't see them in here because all of those rows that I'm not seeing do not have catcher in the position. Now I can come over here if I wanted to and say I want to look at all the catchers and say the shortstops. I can then add in a filter. So it's now looking at a second column. If I do, since these are both checked, it should now show me, here we go, it should show me both the catchers and the shortstops. And you can see now over here the numbers have changed. So now instead of going from 7 all the way to 49, 39 is shown up in there. So these information is still in there. And so this is an important thing to know, that if, say, somebody sends you an Excel worksheet and you're looking at it and it seems like there's information hidden, like it seems like not all the information is there, take a look over here on the right and see whether or not you're seeing like blue row numbers, or you're seeing like blue columns up here on the top. And what that basically is telling you is like, oh, okay, there's hidden information. You can check to see whether they've hidden cells by, if I highlight this here and right click, there's an unhide button on the right click menu that will show everything that's hidden between. You can also see if there's a filter turned on. And so you can see my filter buttons up here. So the filter buttons, when you first turn on filters, they look like this here. It's just a downward pointing. If I zoom in, can we get that bigger? Yeah, okay. So it's a little bit bigger. You can see it's a downward pointing triangle. But on position here, now we see the kind of little funnel symbol, this filter funnel symbol up there and such, which is telling me that there is a filter turned on this column. So if I go and say put on a filter, let me actually zoom out so I can see my information better. There we go. If I put over here and we say do the Chicago Cubs and just look at that there, you can see I have a filter turned on this column, I have a filter turned on this column, but these ones here, there's not a filter turned on. So that's just kind of some indications to tell you, like if you're looking at information that it's missing, like the numbers jump here and you're wondering why that happens, is because there's a filter turned on and it's hiding the cells that don't miss the information that's being filtered. Now, I also just demonstrated actually that you can filter by multiple columns at the same time. And so you can really drill down, or you can really narrow down the information that you're presenting right here in Excel. So if I just wanted to look at all the catchers and shortstops for the Chicago Bears, there's my data right there. Now, if I wanted to turn off the filter, I can come up here, I can click on my filter menu, and right up here at the top, there's a clear filter from team. So I can do that there, and that'll turn off all the filters, or I can come down here and also just click select all, and it will select all the information again. In fact, I'm just going to do clear, and now you can see I have all my different names here. If I go over here and I do select all and hit OK, I now have all the information being shown up again. So you can easily filter the data for when you want to use it specifically, and then you can go and turn it off or on as necessary as you work with your data in Microsoft Excel. So I don't think we really need to work on that in practice, because I want to go on and I want to show you the Vlookup and Hlookup function. I'm going to show you the Vlookup function, and from there you'll know how to do the Hlookup. So what are Hlookup and Vlookup? Let me get my notes here to make sure that I give you the right information on this. So what they do is they allow you to input some information, and then you can find like connected or linked information to what you're looking for. So for example, what we can do is we can do a search for a player's name, and then have the function give us what their salary is and what their position is. So how is this useful? So this is useful in, say, something like if you're saying making like an invoice app, like or invoice worksheet. Like, so you have an invoice on in Excel that you're going to make for your customers that you're going to send out to them there. And on your invoice, you have a space for, say, like an item number and an item name, a quantity, and like a price. And so what you can do is that, so somebody does an order from you, and you can say, okay, so they've ordered items A, B, and C. Now you can go in onto your invoice and say in the item number, instead of having to know what the full name of the item is, you could type in what the item number is in that item number field cell. So I could type in A650, and then it could automatically fill in the item name and the price by using like a Vlookup or Hlookup, depending on how my data is sorted. So there's very little difference between Vlookup and Hlookup. The only difference is that you use Vlookup or vertical lookup when your data is organized in rows from top to bottom. So like the table that we have here, the information going across in rows is all linked to each other. They're not really linked up and down, but they're linked going left and right. So here I would want to do a lookup vertically from top down to bottom. Now, Hlookup is when your data is sorted horizontally. So if you have the data going from left to right, so where the information is in columns. So like if I turn this sideways so that it was, so it said San Francisco Giants, Barry Bonds, 22 million, outfielder, and then it went across, all the way across with all those different kind of fields. So if I had team, name, salary, position going down there, and then I listed it going across to the right, then I use an Hlookup where I'm looking horizontally. So Vlookup is when your data is organized up and down. Hlookup is when it's organized horizontally or left to right. So in this case, because our table is organized vertically, we're going to use the Vlookup function. And this is where I'm going to just kind of shrink this down a bit. Okay, so do I actually have... I actually do not. I should actually put it onto here about what the formula for Vlookup is. But I can also show you how to find it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a little bit of setup here. I'm going to type in name, and then over here we're going to put in salary, and then we're going to put in position. And so the way this is going to work is that I'm going to type in a player's name here, and then right here it's going to automatically fill in their salary, and over here it's going to fill in their position, just from me doing the name over here. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're doing a Vlookup or a Vlookup, since we're only looking at Vlookup right now, is that if the column that I choose to be my search column, so in this case, the search column I'm going to have is going to be name. The information that I look up has to be to the right of my search column. So I can look up salary and position, because they're to the right of name. I can't look up team because it's to the left. Now, in order to be able to add team, so you're wondering why I'm only looking at salary and position here. If I wanted to have the team there, I'd have to reorganize my information here so that the name column is over here on the left and everything else is over to the right. So then I can get that information. It's just the way that the VLOOKUP works. So if you're building a table that you know you're going to want to do a VLOOKUP on, make sure that you organize it so that your search column, the column that's going to have the information that you're going to use for the VLOOKUP function, is going to be is on the far left, and then have all your other data going to the right. That's just the way it works. The same thing with an HLOOKUP. The HLOOKUP will look down. So if there's anything above that search row that you're looking for, it won't be able to pull that information. It's just the way that the HLOOKUP and the VLOOKUP functions work. So what I'm going to do is right over here under salary is I'm going to start entering my formula. And as you know from your past Excel experience, in order to start a formula, we start with the equals key. And then we type the formula name that we're looking for. So in this case, we're going to type in VLOOKUP. And just typing VL gives me the recommendation here. So I'm going to double click on this. So then it enters it in, and then it gives me my little like suggestions here. Basically, it gives me a guide, a tooltip on what it needs for me to fill in this function. So the first thing that we're looking for is the lookup value. So the lookup value is what's known as it's the searched for value. It's the value that the function's going to search for to pull the information that it needs. Now, I could put in just whatever information. If I wanted to, I could put in like bonds Barry right here. Actually, I'd have to, let's just do bonds. If I do bonds, if I put a comma, it's already moving over to the next thing. I'd have to do something fancy to get the comma in there. So I can look for just bonds. But what happens is I want this to be something that if I type it in this cell over here, this one here will look for it. So what I can do is I can tell the VLOOKUP function that the lookup value is in this cell, and I can just click on this cell over here. So F4, so F4, and so whatever's in this cell here is going to be my lookup value. So I'm going to hit comma to move to the next argument here, and now it's telling me what the table array is. So now what I do is I need to tell it where is the information that it has to look in. So where is it looking for? So it's the table that will be searched. And in order for this to work, the column on the left side of the table I give it has to be where the lookup value is, because it always uses that left column. So what we're going to do now in the table arrays, we're going to start up here. And what we're going to do is we're looking at B4 as my start. My top left corner of my table is B4. So I'm going to do B4. And now I'm going to do a colon, because if you remember from when we were doing the basic Excel class, the colon indicates a range, which puts in the table. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, just so I can kind of see how far my row is. So what I'm looking for is D442. So this cell right here. So actually, if I click on it, it will actually fill it in. Now you can see actually now, if I go up, you can see this whole thing is selected in red. And you can see right up here, it tells me B4 to D442. So that is the table of information where the information I'm looking for is, and then the matching the connected data. So I'm going to hit comma to go to my next argument. So my first argument was the lookup value. My next one is the table array. My next one is this column index number, COL underscore index underscore num. And what this is this is the number of columns to the right from the search info. So I'm looking at salary. So right now my search info is here, and we'll call it column 0. And now what happens is that in order to get the salary is one column to the right of where my search information is. So I'm going to do 1 because I want to go over its column index 1. And then the final thing is this range lookup. So range lookup is, there's two different options, a true or false option. So true allows you to have like an approximate match. So if it's something that's close to what you're looking for, false means exact match. For most cases when you're doing VLOOKUP, unless you're really confident and you know what you're doing, generally in this case you'll want to put false. So we're going to put in false in here. And then I'm going to close the parentheses because I had an open parentheses right here after the VLOOKUP. And I'm going to hit enter. And right now it's telling me not applicable because there's nothing here to look for. So you know what? Let's look for something. Let's look for, remember our good old buddy before, Josh Fogg. Let's search for Fogg Josh. And I'm going to hit enter. And okay, I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? So let's go into here. And what I did wrong actually was, so the answer that it gave me here, it gave me the same column. So what I did wrong is I chose the wrong column index number. I was actually kind of confused about, I got confused about how the column index number works. So when you're doing the column index, so this third one over here, your columns that you have is 1, 2, 3. That's how it's indexing them there. So in order to get the information here in salary, I need to use column 2 and not column 1. That's really all that happened there. I'm going to hit enter to confirm, and now you can see now is it's pulling 252, what is that, 2,150,000. So let's see if that's actually right. So let's go find, actually let's go here, and I'll show you how this filter works. Actually, let's select all, and we'll pull up Fogg. There he is. Check. There we go. So there's Josh Fogg. There's 2,150,000. And you notice now that this here actually is not working because the table that it's looking for no longer, most of it's hidden. Just the way Excel works. But you guys able to see I was able to verify how that entered there. So now what I need to do is I also want to get his position. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go and I'm going to actually copy this function, because why rewrite it when I already have it in place? Come over here, whoops. Come over here, I'm going to paste it. I use Control-C, Control-V in my copy and pasting. And in here, instead of looking for column 2, I want column 3. So I'm just going to change the 2 to 3 and hit enter. And there we go. Now we know that he's a pitcher. So let's take a look at another one. Let's look at, say, Phil Nevin. Nevin, Phil. Enter. And you can see Phil Nevin, 9.625 million, and he's a first baseman. So that's how, and let me actually just open this up here so you can kind of see. Actually, if I double click, you can actually see it a little bit easier here. This is what the VLOOKUP function looks like. So it's VLOOKUP. You choose where the search information, like what information are you looking up with, and in this case we chose a cell over here. The table, where is this information all existing? Which column of the table do I want to have? Do I want to pull the information from? And then just the range lookup. In most cases, you're going to put false. So that is that is how you do a VLOOKUP. Now, this is something you can always kind of do a search for help with if you need help remembering how to do it. If I come here to help and I go to help on here on Microsoft Excel, I can just do a search for VLOOKUP function. And what it'll do now is it will actually give me the kind of information about how to do a VLOOKUP on here. And if I click here, this will actually give me all the information on how to do VLOOKUP. And they're seeing here, actually, apparently in the newer versions of Microsoft Excel, there is a new function they offered, which is an XLOOKUP, which doesn't matter if what it'll do is it'll search in all directions. So returns exact. So what happens is this may be able to get me a title, maybe. But it'll also do, instead of trying to decide whether I should do a VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP, XLOOKUP will work regardless of how I have it organized. I recommend kind of going in and kind of play around with that and see how it goes for yourself. You can see they actually have YouTube videos right from Microsoft with kind of help on how to do this kind of thing. So let me know if there's any questions about that in the chat. I'm not going to really kind of give time for you to kind of go on it because we are kind of looking at near the end of the class, and I do want to spend some time looking at conditional formatting. So let's go in and start looking at conditional formatting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to my Home tab on my ribbon here, because conditional formatting lives right over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this big, just so you can kind of see how this area, the styles section looked. Now, if you remember from Advanced Word, if you took my Advanced Word class, styles had a different thing in Advanced Word. It has its own kind of thing here in Excel, but we don't really use it as much as we do in Word. Though you can if you start using those kind of things. But right over here on the left of the Styles section is our menu called Conditional Formatting. So I'm just going to make this a little bit small again, just so that we can see my exercises right next to it. So what conditional formatting allows you to do is conditional formatting allows you to basically give instructions to Excel to format cells in a specific way based on the information that's entered into them. So, for example, what I'm going to do, so what it'll do actually is I can then say, for example, tell Excel that a number over a certain amount, make it green. A number under a certain amount, make it red. And if that number changes, the conditional formatting will automatically change that coloring. So let me demonstrate here. So the first exercise that we have on the sheet here is we're going to highlight all the salaries that are above $500,000. We're going to color them green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the row with salary, or the column with salary. You have to click, if I click on the C up here, you notice when I put my mouse up over onto the column rows up here, it changes from this like white cross to a downward pointing black arrow. And what that's going to indicate is if I click on that, it will select that, and it will select all the way. In fact, it will go down to infinity. You can see it goes down past the end of my table, and it will go on onto infinity until the very end of what Excel offers for rows on here. So I'm going to select the cell or the column that I want to do the conditional formatting in. I'm going to come up here to my conditional formatting menu. And the first thing, so you can see we have a bunch of different kind of rules that we can set for conditional formatting. There's highlight cell rules, which actually tell you, like, you get to set rules like, okay, highlight these cells based on different rules, like whether it's greater than or less than, between numbers, whether it's equal to a certain number, whether it has text or dates. So you can do things like if you have, say, you're keeping in an Excel spreadsheet, say, information about invoices that you've sent out, you can go in and, okay, so the invoice would have, you send it out to a customer and there's a due date, like, okay, this invoice is going to be due October 6th. And what you can do is you can put a conditional formatting in there so that you have a column in there that has a date information, what's the due date, and you can have conditional formatting and say, okay, so now say maybe 2 days, so October 4th, 2 days before the due date, maybe it colors it yellow. So now if you open up the spreadsheet, you can just look for, say, your yellow entries and say, okay, maybe this is something I need to go follow up on. You can then set it so if it's after the date, so now it's say October 8th instead of and so it's now 2 days after October 6th. You could have a conditional formatting so that if it's after that date, it colors it red. So now you can go look at that spreadsheet. You can see, okay, the ones that are yellow are the ones that, okay, in a couple of days these are due. These are the ones I need to keep in mind. Maybe I need to reach out and say, hey, have you got my invoice? Are you ready to pay? The ones that are red are the ones that are overdue, and now you know you have to take action. So you can use conditional formatting to keep track of information like that, and basically make Excel work for you. Instead of having to go through and look at the dates and figure out, okay, is this after the date or is this close? Excel can give you that information by using conditional formatting. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to highlight. So there's the highlight. Any amount that's greater that are above 500,000, so greater than 5,000. So I'm going to click the greater than up here. And so now what happens is I get my greater than, and I'm going to tell it 500,000. Now you'll notice that if I do 500,000, and let's scroll down. Okay, so actually it used to be in Office 2010 that if I didn't put the comma in here, it actually did not work. I actually would have to, and remember before I was talking about when we were doing the replace that you had to put the comma, you had to remove the comma because it wouldn't, the find and replace wouldn't work with the comma and the number. Well, this was the situation where you needed to remember that the comma was there. Apparently, they've updated it now so that it no longer matters. I think if I do put it in there, yeah, it still works. Okay, so you can put in the number 500,000, and then right over here, I can actually tell. Okay, so what it's doing again. Remember thinking about this here like a sentence. Format cells that are greater than 500,000 with, and you can actually tell it what to fill it with. In this case, we're going to choose one of the presets here, which is green fill with dark green text. And I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see, because my data is sorted by salary, which means all of my highest salaries are up at the top, you know what to do? Actually, let me go in and let me change the sort. We're going to change the sort back to what the original sort was, which was team and then by name. There we go. So now we're back to the Arizona Athletics. And so now if I scroll down, you can see I can easily pinpoint out all the values that are over 500,000. You'll notice that we have a situation here where it's, I'm going to actually zoom back in, so since we don't need to really look at my Vlookup function anymore. You can see here 500,000 is not included. So the greater than is not inclusive. It has to be 500,001 and higher. So 500,000 is not included. So let's continue with our exercises, and what we're going to do is we're going to select our column here, and we're going to do a conditional formatting where anything that's under 400,000 is going to get colored red. So I'm going to do less than. Instead of greater than, I'm going to choose the less than rule. And we're going to do 400,000. And we're going to change, again, choose the preset light red fill with dark red text. I'm going to hit OK. And so now I can easily pinpoint. And you can see it's even the cells that don't really have information, it's not colored in. But now it's able to, I'm able to kind of pinpoint, okay, these people are under 400,000, you're above 500,000. You'll notice that I still have some that are white. And what these are is either the ones that are between 400,000 and 500,000. If it is 400,000, it doesn't get colored. I don't know if I have any 400,000s. Yeah, here we go. Here's a 400. You can see 400,000. The less than, just like the greater than, is not inclusive. So let's do one more conditional formatting here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, again, select my column. I'm going to come up here to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and I'm going to do between. Now, the greater than and the less than are not inclusive, so they will not include the number that I use in my search here. The between is inclusive, which means that if I put in 400,000 here, it will include 400,000 as well as 401,000. And over here, I'm going to put in 500,000. So what I'm doing is I'm doing everything between 400,000 and 500,000. We're going to color them yellow fill with dark yellow text. Okay, so now if I go and scroll down, you can now see, just to scroll down, I'm able to easily see kind of the ranges that the salaries go in. So you can see the Colorado Rockies kind of paid their players a lot lower than, say, the Chicago Cubs did in 2005. This is now 15 years ago. So I'm able, you can actually see it just by scrolling down. I'm able to see that trend now because of the conditional formatting that I was able to do. So there's already an advantage that this conditional formatting is doing for us there. The other thing that we can do now is that we remember before when I was showing you the sort functions and how, let me go into data and we're going to go into sort. Remember how before we were looking at sort on cell values? So we're going to delete level. Okay, so we're going to sort by, instead of sorting by, let's go here, we're going to choose salary. And instead of sorting on the cell value, so the value of the cell, we're going to sort on cell color, so the background color of the cell. So this conditional formatting that I used, I can actually use that. And so on top, we're going to put green. Let's put green on top. That works. It will actually, and then we're going to hit OK. And now all of the green salaries are on top of, go all the way down, on top of the non-green salaries. And then I think I can probably, whoops, let me go here. I can probably expand this to salary, cell colors, and we're going to do yellow on top. There we go. And so now what happens is now I go down, and because I told it first sort all the greens on top and then put all the yellows on top, and then there's all my reds. So the conditional formatting allows me to sort. So I can go through, do the conditional formatting, and then I can do a sort based on that information. And then just by refreshing, if information changes, it will then, I can then update the sorting, and it will then move things to the correct place on there. So one of the neat things about conditional formatting is that it's dynamic. It's not fixed in stone. So what I'm going to do is I am going to actually go in and we're going to insert in a player. So I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to insert a player in between here. And here's another convenient shortcut to learn is inserting a row. So now to insert a row into Microsoft Excel, I can right click on the row over here and I can come down to insert. I could also just like right click in like a cell and I can do insert, and then it will tell me, do I want to insert a row or a column or something there? But sometimes when you insert a row, you don't know how many rows you want to insert, and it can be tedious to right click, insert, right click, insert. It takes a couple of steps. So there's a keyboard shortcut that helps you insert rows, and what it is it's Control plus. Now, if you look down at your keyboard, the plus key is up in the top right next to the backspace key. But you'll notice that it's actually a plus equals key, and the plus is at the top of the key. So in order to actually do Control plus, you actually have to do Control Shift plus, so you can get to that top part of the key. So the keyboard shortcut is actually Control Shift plus. And so if I click on, say, 2003 to select the row, and I just hit Control Shift, and then I can just keep tapping plus, and it allows me to go in and enter in as many rows as I want. And when I work with Excel and I want to say insert in like a bunch of fields like into the middle of a table, and I'm not really certain how many fields I want to enter, like if I'm going to go start typing in some information here, is I'll go in and I'll create like a whole bunch of empty rows. I'll create 10, 15 different rows like I've done here. I've created a whole bunch, because it's really easy for me to go in and just kind of enter in what I need to do. And then, okay, I'm done entering what I need to do. It's easy for me just to select these. Oh, hold on. What is it doing? Okay. No. Why did you do that? That's weird. There we go. Let me just select these. And then I can just right click and I can do delete. And it will then get rid of those rows that I did not need. So Control Shift plus is just a really convenient keyboard shortcut to add in like a whole bunch of rows. So I just want to enter in one row here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter in the information here. We're going to enter in, we have a player here called, plays for the Stanford Geese. His name is John Smith. He earns $375,000 and he's a second baseman. Oh, actually, I forgot. I forgot one thing I wanted to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this row, and one more conditional formatting thing that I wanted to show. I forgot I wanted to do this. We're going to actually do some conditional formatting on our position column here as well too. So I'm going to click on D to select my position column, and we're going to go back home. We're going to go to conditional formatting. Now, position does not have numbers, so I can't do a greater than, less than on there and such. So we're going to highlight cell rows, and what I want to do is I want to do equal to. Is it equal to? Either equal to or text that contains. In this case, we're going to do equal to. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell Excel that anything that is equal to second baseman. And then instead of using one of the colors that I've already used before, light red, yellow, green, because we've already used those over there and such, I'm going to come down here to custom format, because I just also want to indicate to you how you can actually design your own custom formatting. So when I go to custom format, it gives me the format cells box here. And so what happens is I can do things like I can make the text bold if I wanted to. Or I can't change the font that goes through. I can make it strike through. If I wanted to. I can't change the size because those are the things that they don't really allow me to change. But I can do things like I can change the color of the font. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose yellow. So it's going to make the font yellow. Now yellow is kind of hard to see against the white background. So I'm going to come over here to fill, which is the background color of the cell, and I'm going to choose blue. So now if I go look at this here, so fill blue, I'm going to hit OK. And so now what it'll do is it will now fill in anything that equals second baseman with a light blue background and a yellow text. And now if I go down, you can actually see, if I scroll down, you can easily pinpoint all my second basemen. So that's what the conditional formatting allows me to do. I mean, I can go in and do a different set of conditional formatting rules for all the different players and have this be color-coded based on the position that they're playing. So let me go back to inserting in Mr. John Smith of the Stanford Geese. So you're seeing I'm just doing it right here in the middle. It's actually right here in the middle of all my greens. So we're going to put Stanford Geese. His name is Smith John. And he has earned $375,000. And he is a second baseman. Now, I want you to notice a couple of things that happened when I did this. The first is that because his salary, the salary that he's earning, is less than $500,000, it matches the rule that I set when I did the conditional formatting that less than $500,000 should be colored red. So there it is. So this automatically, like the conditional formatting, notice the amount that I put in there. If I go in there and make this, say, 410,000, which remember was our in-between color that should color it yellow. There it is. It colors it yellow. So I'm going to go back to 375,000. You'll also notice that because I made him a second baseman, there's a reason why I chose second baseman for that conditional formatting and made him that. Just so you can see, it automatically colored his position to match the conditional formatting, the other things. So what that does, what it's showing you is that when you do the conditional formatting, when you enter in information and you have the rules set, it will match to new information that you put in, not just the information that you already did the formatting on. That's why conditional formatting is as valuable as it is. So instead of, I mean, it would have been really easy for me to sort my entire table by salary from largest to smallest, and then take everything that's above 500,000, and I could have selected it all, and then I could have gone in and filled it in green with green text and made it happen. But the thing is with conditional formatting is that it's always checking and verifying the information. So if something changes, like for example, John Smith had a really good year and they decided they were going to give him an upgrade to 3.75 million. Not that much. He got 37. He's more than Barry Bonds now. 3.75 million. You can see as soon as this amount here entered over 500,000, it got colored green because that's what the conditional formatting said. I said actually in the exercise changed to 1 million, but this works as well too. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left till the end of the class. I am probably going to just run a little bit over because I just want to quickly show you what templates are. We're not going to spend that much time on there, such you can easily find out a lot of this stuff by going on to like Google and doing a search for Microsoft Excel templates, or going onto YouTube and doing a search. Additionally, at the end of the handout, I have information here for further study and practice. So the library offers to you access to a service called Udemy, which is a really great online learning resource that covers a wide range of different topics. So it covers things like Microsoft Office. So you can do Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Access, all those different kind of Microsoft Office programs. You can do Photoshop, you can do InDesign, Illustrator. They have lessons on all that there, but it also goes beyond that there. There's things like management skills and leadership skills and things like project management and programming and coding, and they have skills like things like sewing and writing. They have lessons and courses on there that you can go through and learn at your own pace. So to access it, you would go to this address here, or you can get to it from several places on the Ferguson Library website. Once you're there, let me actually click through and I will show you. Once you get there, what you'll want to do is, okay, so I've signed in. The first thing it will do is it will actually ask you for your library card number. So you have to be a Ferguson library card number to use it, Ferguson card holder using it. You'll enter in your Ferguson card number there, and then you have to sign in. They do want you to sign in and create an account, and you'll need to either have a Google account or a Microsoft account. And I'm just going to quickly hop over to here so I can sign in without you seeing my sign in information. There we go. go back to here. And so once you're signed in, then you have access. And so you can see they have cloud, data science, development, IT. And so I have provided in the handout here a few courses to kind of continue or expand what this class is covered. So it's a great way to kind of learn. And I also just mentioned you can go onto Google and you can do, so like if you wanted to remember how to do a Vlookup function, I can do Excel 2016 Vlookup. And I do that there. And usually one of the first responses that you'll get is going to be the support.microsoft.com. This is, in my opinion, one of the best places to get information, like as a reference or just learning how to use Excel. So if I go and click through this here, this here will give me like actually step-by-step on kind of, it will explain what the function is, and then it will tell me how to get started and give me examples on how to use it. And it will do this for almost anything that you have in Microsoft Excel. So practices, things you can do for a practice on there, problems that may come up if something works, so you can troubleshoot. So it's a really great tool. Plus there's things you can see here, there's like videos from different people on YouTube, like you're watching now. So these also end up being really good places to kind of refresh or kind of learn and expand your skills using Microsoft Excel. So, and then finally, if anybody has to leave because it is 9 o'clock, I just want to indicate here, and that didn't mute my microphone, that's good, is if you did enjoy this class and you want kind of more things to offer, I do recommend going to the link here, projectoutcome.org/en/50649. This link is also available on the online-tech-classes website. Under intermediate Word, click on that there, and it's just a little feedback survey so that I know how I did and ways that I can better, the library can better serve you as our community on there. So let me go back and let's do just a quick look at templates and what they are in Microsoft Excel. So templates are, what do we have to do? We have to go to a new document. So we're going to go to new. And so when you go to new in either Office 365 or 2016 or 2019, you're going to see a screen like this here. And down here, you have all the different templates. So what templates are basically other people have already done the hard work in Excel to build tools for you to use in Excel. So there's things, you can see some examples here. There's things like personal monthly budget, and there's like household budget or like a weekly chore schedule. So if you have kids and you want to kind of keep up with like a weekly chores on there, inventory list with highlights. And there are thousands of these out there. You can there's some that come with there and such. You can also do search online to find specific things. There's calendars if you need to work with them, schedules, invoices. So if you're doing a business and you're trying to put together an invoice, you could make something you want in Excel yourself, or you could go in and by going to business here, actually let me just do a search for invoice. I can just open this up and I have and so here we go. Now I have an invoice template here that I can go in and I can fill in the information that to personalize for my own business right up here. And then right here I have the information, and then this will print out and then I can mail it or email it out to the customer. I don't have to go in and design any of this kind of information. So things like the subtotal here automatically adds in the amounts up here, and the total cost will automatically pull in like all the different math that it needs on there. So, so templates basically allow you to use a tool that somebody else built and build it and reuse it for your own purposes. Templates also allow you to have a tool, or if there's something that you do that's repetitive, like you do something a lot in Excel, so you're doing something over and over again in Excel, you can build a template for it so that you're not, because all of us have probably done stuff in Excel where we have to do something weekly or monthly, and what we tend to do is okay, so it's almost October, so what happens is that I'll go back to, so when October starts, I have to do the stats for the library. I'm going to give you a real world example that I work with. I have to pull together certain stats for the library. So what I could do is I could go and get my stats report that I made in September, open that up, and then I can just change all the information in there to match what I have for October. or August, September, whatever. I can change it for what I need to submit in October. The problem is that we all get absent-minded. In fact, I just did this earlier tonight, actually, and I'll go in, open up my September report, change all the information, and then I'll hit Control S, because remember that muscle memory I was telling you about, and I'll save over my September report. Oops, that's a problem. I've now lost all the information from the September report. So and then I actually did that earlier with actually the handout when I was updating the handout for you guys. I actually saved over an earlier version of it that I didn't mean to save over. If I had done it, but what a template allows me to do is a template allows me to save that report with all the information. And if I save it as a template, that means that each month I can just open up the template and it will give me basically like a blank version that I can work with, that I can go in and enter the information. And when I go to save it, it will save it as a new file. It won't save over an old file. So templates allow you not only to have, to make something repetitive to a reusable Excel document that you can use without having to risk earlier versions, but you can also use templates that other people have made where they've built in a lot of the design or the math or kind of the hard work that's happening in there, but then you can also adjust it for your own purposes. Like I can add in like rows here for different items if I want to. I can change this background logo here. I can put my own logo in if I wanted to, or my own background image on there. But I can still use the basic foundation of what they had here. I can change the colors if I wanted to. But so what happens is I can take what they did, and they've done all the work, the harder work that they have on here, and then I can then just use it for my own purposes. So that is kind of the quick and dirty on Excel. Let me know if there's any questions. I'm going to hang around for a couple minutes to see if anybody has any questions. Other than that, I do recommend going to check out Udemy and continuing your learning. Next week at this time, on Tuesday, from 7 to 9, I will be doing an introduction to basic PowerPoint. So we'll be looking at just like how to start building presentations in PowerPoint, the basics on how to insert information into there. The following week, we're going to do an intermediate PowerPoint where we're going to look at things like transitions and animations and some of the fancier things that you can do in Microsoft PowerPoint. And then the following week, which is the 13th, I believe. Let me verify that. Actually, I can see that because it's right here on the class website here. So October 13th, Tuesday, October 13th. It's going to be intermediate PowerPoint. On Tuesday, October 20th, I'm going to be doing Microsoft Office Suite Integrated, which is going to look at how to take Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and use them all together as kind of a unified tool. So we'll be looking at things like how to take things from Excel, charts and tables, and put them into Word and PowerPoint to kind of spice up your reports or presentations. And then we'll be also looking at mail merge, how you can organize information in Excel and use that to automatically build things in Microsoft Word. So with that, thanks for anybody who joined me. I'm going to hang around for about a minute or two, see if there's any questions that come up in either of the chats. With that, I hope to see you next Tuesday, and I hope you had a good time. And please go and do the survey here at this link here, which is also on this page here down underneath Intermediate Word. So thank you again, and please let me know if you have any questions. All right, it doesn't look like there's any questions. So with that, thank you very much and good night, and I hope to see you all next week.